2018 at City Hall Complex Council Chambers. And we're going to go ahead and just do our Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody will rise, please, for honor our flag. Councilor Maldonado, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And you may be seated. Thank you. We've got a short session today. We only have one item, and that's on discussion items, which we have number one, discussion and possible action approving a one-year contract with terms and conditions for Attorney Luis S. Parra, as City Attorney for the City of Nogales. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the employment service agreement with Luis Fernando Parra, effective April the 15th of 2018 through April the 14th of 2019, as presented and recommended by the city manager.
Do we have a second? We have a second.
Second.
Robert did.
Okay, open for discussion. Any discussion? Mr. Parra, do you have any comments to make?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to again reiterate my appreciation for this opportunity to serve the City of Nogales. The contract that has been put before you is a contract that Dr. Felix and I reviewed and discussed both on a couple of occasions, and the amount of the annual salary that has been that's being recommended to this honorable mayor and council, to the honorable mayor and council, is not an amount that I was in agreement with. I believe the amount that's been placed before you as per term 3 of the contract is $104,000. I informed Dr. Felix that I was not in agreement with that amount. I was expecting that amount be modified to be commensurate with the position that I'm undertaking and the responsibilities that I am undertaking. I understand that the City of Nogales is currently facing some budget constraints. Dr. Felix informed me of these budget constraints, but I informed him that that I was prepared to take on the position at a salary of $120,000 a year as opposed to $104,000. We went back and forth, and I'm prepared to take on the position, and I believe that there are a couple of terms that are that obviously are beneficial to the city. There are some terms that are beneficial to me, and I think everything else in the contract looks fine. I'm exempt from the appeal provision. I could be terminated for no reason. I'm not requesting that I be terminated with cause, and I think that's certainly something that's beneficial to this body. So I know that Councilman Lucero has to kind of hurry this up, and I appreciate that. Obviously, all of you, again, I really respect your time, and so I would respectfully request that that particular amount be amended, and I'm willing to serve for that year. And I would respectfully request that the amount of $112,000 be considered by this honorable body.
How much was that?
120.
112. I want
112
to
or
be
one?
fair to the city, and I believe that $112,000 is a fair amount.
So you wanted amended to 112
That's my that's what I'm asking of this honorable council and mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can I just get the opinion of the city manager on this?
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Verona, what I took into account is this is the amount that we offered Mr. Williams, and he accepted, number one. Number two, the budget for next year is going to be a little bit tight. Right now we're 93,000 short in terms of revenue collected up to now. So the budget for next year, with all the needs and requests that are coming in, I thought it would be best to keep the amount that we offer Mr. Williams on the table.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one more. I just want to make sure, Mr. Mayor, Dr. Felix. So then, your recommendation to us is that it remain at 104. You're not even the 112.
Right. We've got a lot of things to consider for next year, especially some major items that are going to have to be purchased for fire and police and all, and other things that are coming down. And so we wanted to be on the safe side, have sufficient revenues. Right now, we've gone through all the city budgets and have made some cuts, and so I thought that perhaps this might be a fair amount, especially given that Mr. Williams had agreed to it as well. So,
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the 112 offer. I think that's very reasonable at this point. I think he's meeting us halfway. And
Right, that's an $8,000 difference.
yes,
Compared to 8,000 more that you were asking for.
and that would be the amount that would be reasonable to you,
Yes, that's
Mr.
correct, Councilman
Mr. Pond?
Rojas.
The other thing that I don't see the budget really playing into this is because we have 2 employees that aren't there anymore. And there's money budgeted for that. You probably already saved from the time they haven't been performing. The $8,000 probably between those 2 employees, you're probably at least halfway there or more.
Mayor, one of the things we need to consider is we do need to hire some personnel to refill those positions. So,
But they might not be at the same pay rate that the others were.
right.
So the difference is, what we're talking about is an $8,000 difference. And as it is, legal is way overfunded in a lot of other areas. So I'm sure that the proper head of that office, the attorney in charge, could probably find a lot of areas where he can cut down. And we're hoping that Mr. Parra's not going to cost us the amount of money Mr. Machado cost us. So again, it's I think we're going to have a savings in tens of thousands of dollars, not $8,000. So I agree with Mr. Rojas as far as and what Mr. Parra is requesting of the 112, which is still a lot less than what Mr. Machado was making previously. And I got any other comments that the council would like? Yes, Councilman Barona.
Thank you. I thought that all the negotiations should have been done with the city manager. This protocol of coming over here and doing a sidestep with the city manager, I'm not quite in agreement with that. Well, I'm not in agreement with that. one thing for sure is the both of you have to work together. And I don't want this to get off to a negative start. And sometimes I realize it, that there's savings. I don't mean to allude that you couldn't come up with some savings, but then at the same time, we have the police chief that's saying he wants $15,000 more. And he'll come up and say that, well, I don't have an assistant chief, so are we going to give him the $15,000 to treat everybody the same? So then, are all department heads going to come up to us and say, I can save here from the budget? And that's what I mean. And I want to make sure that the city manager is the one who should be making recommendations to us on this. And that's why we have a chief executive officer. Now, I understand you, Mr. Parra, but I mean, I have to understand the scope of the entire organization. This has nothing to do with your legal abilities, you know. I find your legal way up. Okay, we're not talking about that. But I don't want to set up, well, you went and did it for the city attorney, now why can't you do it for me? And then they're going to go to you, and if you don't give them what they want, they're going to come over here. And I don't want to be put in that position. I mean, that's why you're here to do that.
Well, that's a good kind of point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just don't want to be put in that position, Mayor. I don't want people to come and lobby me as an individual. I mean, that's why we have him there to do that job. Mm-hmm. And that's for him to make recommendations. That doesn't mean that I'm always going to be in accord with his recommendations, but I want to make sure, especially, that the both of you get along. That the both of you are working to make Nogales a better community. That's all we're looking at. I don't want everybody to come in here to say, you made one exception, now what about an exception for me? Because we get lobbied from we get lobbied from different individuals, Mayor. I just don't want to be put in that position, Mayor. I want to be consistent. Mr. Parra, please understand that.
Let's see. Well, I guess Mr. Councilman Barona still has the floor. As soon as he gets done, I'll call on you, Councilman Lucero.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, if you can speak into the mic, because I can barely hear him.
Oh, they can't.
Well, I am speaking into the mic. I am speaking into the. You want me to speak louder?
It's very uncharacteristic that I can't hear you, so you must be speaking very quietly.
Yeah, like my good friend Ronald Reagan said, here we go again.
Councilman, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Barona, if I may, I would just respectfully request that you recognize that Councilman Diaz has now joined us for the record.
Yes, welcome, Councilman Diaz.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Isn't this going to start at 2:30? 2 o'clock. 2. Yeah. Well, anyway.
You're still on time, sir.
Back, Mr. Parra, you know, and this organization here, I have to lean toward the recommendations of the city manager in this. I want to make sure that we're consistent, that everybody's treated as equally and fairly as possible. That's why we passed this back over to him to negotiate. I was hoping everything we wouldn't be put in a position like this, but your contract with me is excellent. I support it, but I cannot support this request even as what you say you can come up with. I just can't do it because I have to treat all employees the same. And if I do it for one employee, I'm telling you, the police chief is going to come up here and say he wants that $15,000, and he's been here for 34 years, and he doesn't feel he's been paid fairly. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, but again, you have to look at the police department, how embarrassing it has been to the city of Nogales. So that goes a lot with the leadership there. And
Mr. Mayor?
yes, go ahead, Councilman Lucero, you're next.
What I want to point out is the city has certain officers and city attorney, city magistrate, city clerk, and city manager are all contract employees that normally mayor and council would negotiate contracts with each of those positions. So to put them in the same category as The regular employees is not the case. Regular employees don't get to negotiate a contract like the police chief. They are not contract employees. So normally what would happen is we would be working with an HR director negotiating a contract with each of these officers, and in this case, Mr. Bada is negotiating with the city manager, I guess, who is assuming the role of HR director. But it's really incumbent upon mayor and council to be at the table to negotiate what we feel is best for the city and retaining the individual for that position. I don't believe what Mr. Bada is requesting is out of line. I think it's comparable with what is paid to city attorneys the size of Nogales in our region. As far as the impact on the budget, we have not addressed next year's budget, and if we act on this motion, we will have to address it in the budget, but we're not there yet. So I appreciate the city manager's concerns, but that's another dialogue for another point in time. So where I stand is I don't have a problem with the motion, and I'm prepared to vote.
When you say the motion, because the motion as it stands is 104,000. Now to amend it would be placing it at 112.
I believe I made the motion, man. To 112.
I believe you are correct, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Okay, so there's
But there is no second yet to the motion.
Yeah,
to
there is
amend.
no second yet.
Well, I second. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to make a comment after Mr. Lucero had finished.
Well,
Mr. Mayor,
well,
if I may, I've reconsidered my request in lieu of the discussion that's taken place today. And I want to get off on the right foot with this mayor and council. I respectfully retract my request. Councilman Lucero, I appreciate your discussion, and especially your having enlightened the mayor and council and the city manager with respect to who it is incumbent upon to make the decision with respect to the amount of this contract and the terms of this contract, for that matter. I understand that the mayor and council directed the city manager to negotiate the contract, and I believe he did it in good faith, seeking the best interests of the city. I did so seeking the best interest, or my best interest, and we are where we are.
well, may I say something, Mr. Parra, before you go on? If I recollect here, you had said originally that you wanted 120,000 a year when we told you to get together with our city manager to put together the contract with the terms and conditions of it. And so I was under the impression that that's what you were going to be, and our city manager was aware of that. I don't see any problem with $8,000 that can be moved around in your office to cover your fee, because the last thing I want is for you to feel stretched out in that office and getting underpaid in comparison to what we've paid in the past. So I know that you're a very fair and just man. That's why we want you on board. But at the same time, I don't see anything starting off on any wrong foot. If anything, the city manager is starting on the wrong foot with the mayor. And he lies to me on occasion. I don't like to get lied to. So as far as problems, the problems are already here, and it's something that we're going to have to settle. But don't feel that you're being part of the problem. I don't think so. You can be part of the solution, as far as I'm concerned. So no, I want to speak out my mind here, because if we're going to be talking about relationships and starting off on the wrong foot, we need to be respectful. And the city manager and me need to sit down and be respectful of each other if we're going to work together. Because I have some authority, he has some authority, and we have to meet halfway. Now, you're under the mayor and council. And it's up to us, not the city manager, to give you a contract. So let's get that straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And if he has any reasons about cutting down on, he can start with his own contract, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Honorable Council, I believe that there's a motion on the floor with respect to...
And the second, to pay you 112, amended motion with my, I seconded it. I second that motion for 112,000. So that's the motion right now, to be amended to pay you 112,000 a year. That's the motion right now.
Defer to Mr. Massey on this.
And, right, Mr. Massey?
Yeah, I heard the motion made, and I heard you second it, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, for 112,000, and I call for the question.
One more question. Are all the other terms gonna stay the same? Just the amount?
Just the amount.
104?
Just the amount's the only thing.
Just the amount.
104 to 112?
Yes,
Everything else?
everything else is agreeable. Go ahead, Councilman Barona, I'll let you speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to just make sure that Mr. Lucero's comment on contract employees, we set the salaries not for contract employees only and exclusively. We set the salaries for all 300 plus employees. So this isn't just the negotiators. We negotiate with everyone through their unions. Everyone, the mayor and council is the one who sets the final salaries for all of our employees. So let's not just say that it's because that's one of the four that the people have given us permission to work directly with. The other ones are under the city manager, but even though they're under the city manager, we, through our budgetary control, set the salaries for all of the employees of the city of Nogales.
Thank you, Councilman. And I guess we're gonna have to do our due diligence on that, because a lot of departments are exceeding, and department heads with the city manager are giving permission to allow to pay more than what we have granted. So maybe that's why we're having budget problems. We're gonna have to look into that.
Well, I believe in an open dialogue, to have a narrative on this. But I think we do have a concern, Mayor, that we probably need to address, because it's not the point to talk about it now, but by your comments,
we will address it.
I don't want to, I just don't want to work like this. I want to treat our employees fairly, and I want to make sure that everybody's treated the same. And Mr. Parra, I haven't changed my mind. I'm not going to support this.
Okay, so we'll call for the question for the amended version of paying Mr. Parra 112,000 a year. All those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, so do we need a roll call? We'll do a roll call because it was
Might
kind
be
of
a better.
it was kind of a little. Okay, I didn't even hear Mr. Lucero on that one. We'll start with myself, Ms. Robinson, and I approve the motion, the amended motion to pay Mr. Parra $112,000. Aye.
Mr. Maldonado,
Aye.
Mr. Lucero,
Aye.
Mr. Rojas,
Aye.
Mr. Barona,
No.
Mr. Diaz,
Aye.
Okay, motion passed, carried by majority vote. Congratulations on your new contract, Mr. Parra.
Congratulations, Mr. Parra.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just make the record very clear, I believe that was a motion to amend the original motion, so then the original motion now is before the council.
Oh,
So you amended the contract from 104 to 112. Now I think keep the record clear, Mr. Mayor, and let's have a roll call or call for the question on the underlying motion, which is to approve the contract as amended in Roman numeral 3.
thank you.
All right, just we want to keep this
Okay,
clear.
so now we're gonna go into the original motion so that it'll read that it has amended for 112. And again, we'll do a roll call, Mrs. Robinson. And all those in favor of approving this, signify by saying aye. We'll start with me. Well, we'll start with me on the roll call vote, and I vote aye.
Mr. Maldonado,
Aye.
Mr. Lucero,
Aye.
Mr. Rojas,
Aye.
Mr. Varona,
No.
Mr. Diaz,
Aye.
and Chairman.
Okay, so now,
Aye.
okay, motion carried again by majority. And so now we do have both the contract and the terms and limitations set forth clear with your amended motion of $112,000 a year. So,
Thank you very much.
So much for stepping up and applying to cover the city of Nogales in this time, Mr. Papa.
Mr. Mayor, honorable members of this city council, I look forward to working with all of you. I very much look forward to working with Dr. Felix and moving things forward, moving the city in the right direction. And as Dr. Felix stated to me last week, let's get to work. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. The next item that we have is, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much
Jeanette,
for
we're going to the conference room?
coming over today. Thank you.
Congratulations.